How to SEO for AI models. Hello and welcome to the August 2025 edition of the Majestic SEO panel, where we're discussing how to SEO for AI models. I'm your host, Bain, and joining me today are three great guests. Let's get them to introduce themselves, starting off with Luke.
Thanks, David. My name's Luke Gosha. I am the head of search and AI at a brand and performance agency called StrategiQ. We're based out in London. I've been in SEO for well over 10 years and have really been leaning into the AI search world and really excited by where we're going. That's a little bit about me. I'll pass over.
Well, thanks, Luke. Nice introduction and demonstrating we're getting the right people on the right panel. So that's a good start. Also with us today is John.
Thanks, David. My name is John Mest. I'm the CEO of Just Reach Out and ChatRank. They're digital PR and AI visibility software platforms. My background is in various different types of software and SaaS products. I kind of stumbled my way into SEO and AI visibility a few years ago, but really excited to talk more about it today on the call.
Superb. Thanks so much for joining in, John. And also with us today is Tasha.
Hi guys, so I'm Tasha. I am an SEO and search strategy consultant. I predominantly focus on luxury premium brands as well as obviously AI search as well. In terms of my background, heavily SEO, but probably a bit of an SEO rounder. At some points in my career, I've even looked after digital PR teams. So yeah, that's me.
I was thinking MAI was a new acronym that I hadn't heard of, the Model AI Search. But no, it's probably just going AI Search, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tasha, sorry for the tease there. Can we stick with you for the first question? Because I think you hear so many different descriptions, terms. We hear about AI models, we hear about LLMs. What's the difference between an AI model and an LLM?
Very good question. I think there's crossovers between the two, and I think it's always good to kind of clarify what the difference is between them both. So obviously an LLM is obviously a large language model, and I guess this is like a type of AI model that is trained to understand and generate human language and something conversational. So a good example of that would be ChatGPT, whereas an AI model is probably more of a broader term and sometimes includes some like an algorithm that's been trained as well. So a basic example of an AI model would be something along the lines of like facial recognition, for example, that some software and some things use as well. So that's how I would kind of differentiate between the two of those. I don't know if anyone else has any other opinions on that.
Yeah. Thank you, Tasha. Let's get the other two panelists' opinion on that. So, Luke, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that was a good summary. I think there's a lot of acronyms going around in the SEO world. If SEO wasn't enough, now we've got AEO, GEO, LLM optimization. And when it comes to those specifics, I think, my opinion is they're all one in the same. They're all ways that brands can be found from through tools like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, etc. And it's important for us to tackle it with a search first mindset. So that's the only thing that I would kind of add to that whole mix of new acronyms that we've now come across in the SEO world.
John, Luke saying, one and the same. What are your thoughts?
No, I think that's spot on. I think for us at least, we really focus in on the chat models, so more like the LLM types that are really helpful for search. Now, that's now today in the summer of 2025. Now, it could be not long before video and image and everything else could be absolutely added into this, and you could be trying to rank for images. I mean, there's a lot that could be happening here. And I think for today's discussion, most likely we'll be sticking with the chat models, which is the traditional, LLMs like the ChatGPTs and Perplexities.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'm just wondering if LLM SEO or AI SEO is likely to have more search volume and what people should be optimizing their LinkedIn profiles for.
I generally prefer to say that you should be growing your chat rank, but that's I'm a little biased.
Yeah.
Is that a branded search that you're trying to
our business is called ChatRank. Yes, we do believe that you should be growing your chat rank. Yes.
Tasha, Luke, what should people should be focusing on in terms of their LinkedIn profiles?
Do you know what? I think it's a very good question. I'm tempted to actually check actual search volumes in terms of how people are actually searching around those. But I feel like people are probably more, they understand what an LLM is a bit more than the other phrases. So I might go for LLM search.
Yeah, LLM SEO has an easier trip off the tongue phrase going about it, and that tends to, I guess, become more likely. But we'll see. Maybe you can do some searches, and we can find out later on the discussion.
Yeah.
But look, in terms of different LLMs, different AI models, user interfaces, out there. Do they act quite differently, or is the way that SEO is done for them quite similar? And as long as if you optimize for one, you can optimize for many at the same time.
I think it's a very good question. From my perspective, there's a kind of broad view we have to take. Certainly, these different models do behave in different ways. For example, OpenAI's ChatGPT was originally using Bing's web system. There's been recent studies as well that I've seen on the likes of LinkedIn where people are saying it's actually, has it switched up? Is it starting to use Google's index? I cannot confirm nor deny that specifically. But those are kind of nuances that we need to take into consideration, especially when we think about the likes of Gemini as well, and how that's Google-based IP and how that would work as well. So there are certain nuances. And to add more kind of fire to the mix, I've been tapping into AI mode and really digging into AI mode as well, which uses a completely different system, like the query fan-out technique. So as these different products are out there, there are certain nuances, but there is no one guide around how to optimize for all of these. There's no one source of truth. It's all going to be trial and error. It's all going to be learning through experimentation. But what I like to communicate to clients and people that I talk to this subject about is the fundamentals of SEO and LLM search, AI search are the same. The only difference is that we have to lean into certain things a bit more when it comes to LLMs, and especially when we look at the different types of LLMs that we have. If we think likes of Google, their crawlers, their rendering systems have gained so much experience and pace throughout the years, whereas the likes of ChatGPTs might be slightly behind, especially when it comes to things like rendering JavaScript. We know that Google can do that pretty well, whereas these other LLMs are, let's say, in their infancy and from a crawling perspective, although they are ramping up and moving very fast. So I don't know if infancy is the right word, but they certainly haven't had the head start that Google's had. And we have to kind of think about that when we're strategizing. The fundamentals of technical SEO from a rendering perspective are even more so important now. Traditional things like off-page signals and wanting followed links may not mean as much. What's more important now for LLMs is brand mentions and the context that your brand's being referenced in. So to answer your question, we're very long kind of I'm going on a bit here, but there are certain nuances when it comes to traditional SEO and LLM optimization. But I think we have to think of it in a search first way, but just have to lean on certain aspects a little bit more.
Yeah. Luke mentioned that Google have obviously been around for a lot longer, since the late 90s or so. Is that a help or a hindrance for them?
Is it a help or a hindrance for Google? It's probably a help. Now, when it comes to actually ranking and visibility in the AI models, Luke mentioned the infancy of, say, like the ChatGPT's crawlers or the Perplexity crawlers. That can be a way that you can kind of take advantage of some of that as well if you're a brand that's thinking about this smartly. And so I'd say, to answer your exact question, like, I'm sure Google is much happier at having 30 years of experience of crawling web pages, so they don't get stuck on a page of JavaScript and run away and hide and cry, because they just, their crawlers understand how that all works. They can maybe process information a little bit better. So to your point about the question before about, like, do the models have differences? Like, yes, I think for us, we see that Google being especially interesting because of their snippet targeting and kind of there's very punchy one sentence things you see a lot at the top of search. Like, that is what we really need to focus on for the Gemini models and for Google, to make sure that you are and your brand is front and center in those punchy snippets and those AI overviews at the top of the page. Now, when it comes to Claude and Perplexity and ChatGPT, there are definitely nuances to the models. Our customers ask about this a lot. What we tell them is, 90% of this is what kind of Luke mentioned. It's fundamentals. It's making sure that you are kind of keeping your brand at the top of what it should be doing from an SEO perspective overall. And sure, there might be little model nuances here and there, but for now, for the most part, we really kind of focus in on helping our brands kind of get visible across the models, with one little slight nuance for kind of that Google targeting for specifically for the AI overviews and those snippets, because that is such an important aspect of brand visibility.
Yeah.
Okay. And Tasha, what would you like to add there?
I think what I'll add is I think I agree with what the other two have said in terms of how people should be looking at it, and it definitely needs to be from a search first point of view. I do think that in this era, people might start to forget about covering the basics or the basis of the fundamentals of SEO, because essentially, something I always say all the time is like your website is like the engine of the car, and all the other digital touch points is like the body of the car. The car doesn't move without the engine, even though you might not see it. Does that make sense? And obviously, all the information that then gets surfaced into these different LLMs are obviously coming from the website, which means that you still need to cover the basics when it comes to tech and ensuring that their various different crawlers can crawl and index the information as well. And I think people have run off with the fairies with the rest and have forgotten about that important like element, because even if you're, you know, doing doing entity SEO optimization, which we know is pretty important for this, it's still, you still need structured data to be able to do that as well. Do you see what I mean? So you can't escape it. But obviously there's always going to be a good like probably a more of a focus maybe on Google, just because obviously Google has so much more experience and when it comes to this, and they've been in the game so long. But then Google also have different functionalities which then pull in different formats that come from various different places. Do you see what I mean? So I think that's why Google can't be entirely ignored or put to the sidelines. It still probably needs a bit more of a focus when it comes to that. And then obviously, to what Luke was saying, I do still think backlinks are important, but obviously now it doesn't matter if it's a follow link or if it's not a follow link or if it's a link at all, just because they all the different LMs will look at where and how you're being mentioned, and then measure the sentiment of that to then determine if it's an answer worthwhile giving to whoever's searching or asking that long tail query. So I think it's going to be I think that side of thing is going to become way more important now, especially if you want to start building any form of brand affinity as well, and you're trying to use search to do that. So yeah,
I think also just to add as well, and maybe referencing back to the question that we had at the top of this session around, you know, do we call ourselves LLM optimization or SEO and et cetera, et cetera. Of course, the SEO in me wants to see search volume, but I do think the kind of we're blurring the lines a little bit by having these different acronyms. That search first approach is definitely what I'm communicating to a lot of people that I'm talking to about this subject. And I think the differentiations that we have with these other acronyms kind of take us away from those fundamentals, that search first mentality that we have. And SEOs have the skills and have the history of working with algorithms and working with you know, answers that are appearing to users and helping brands to be discovered, that we should lean into that and not create kind of these separation within the industry, because I don't know if it's just me or it might be my algorithm on LinkedIn, but I do see a lot of people almost arguing about the point around, you know, people being geniuses about LLM search and SEO, but you know, we're all part of the same team. It's all one in the same.
I do agree. I do think we are one of the same team. But my only gripe, because obviously I do agree everything needs to be like search first, as in, you know, an SEO person. But my only gripe with that phrase is that it sometimes ignores like maybe the audience element that goes towards it, because obviously we're used to keywords, data, this and that, execute on that. But actually, I don't know why the name of it slips my head, but there's a few audience insights tools that I use. And one of them, Google's a client of theirs, because even though Google probably sits on a wealth of information because it knows what everybody's searching at every given moment of time, they don't always know why people are searching for particular things or why it's going up and down. And I think that gray area of why is basically the thing that I think, if as SEOs we kind of need to move into the area of how do we then address this, because that's why people go to ChatGPT as opposed to Google. Does that make sense? Depending on how they're searching. And obviously all of these different updates that we see across the board is to do with the audience first, if that makes sense. So it's like audience and kind of search first.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe we're going into, especially what LLMs and AI search has shown us, is that we're moving in a direction of personalization, and that's where users may have feeling let down by the 10 blue clicks that we had traditionally seen in the SERPs for the longest time, right? So that's certainly a point. I also think that something that I say to my team and SEOs that I've met in my career is that for me, SEO is good marketing. And one of the great things that AI search has really brought to the forefront, in my opinion, is that it reinforces the fact that SEO that is good marketing, because things like brand and how your brand's being mentioned and referenced, and brand building activities you can do to really make sure that we're training the models on positive brand sentiment is really important, and again an aspect of good marketing, especially like I come across clients that historically had been ranking for things that maybe their brand didn't warrant ranking for, and they were generating traffic from that. But now all of a sudden those kind of queries are zero-click queries and have zero-click intent. So the landscape has changed, but it makes us as SEOs really lean into and think about how what we do is essentially all aspects and flavors of good marketing.
Look, when you talk about the landscape has changed, what do you actually mean in terms of volume of users using AI models to conduct searches versus more traditional search engines?
So the landscape can mean many things. Like the landscape of Google is changing in front of our eyes. But what we've got to reference as well, isn't it? It's a great point, and I'm seeing it in analytics profiles for a lot of different clients in different industries. And again, it's not to diminish what we're doing, and in terms of AI search, I certainly believe on this journey of where we're going. But the fact of the matter is, some of these LLMs are only driving 2 to 3% of traffic. Google is still the big player. I'm fully aware that a seismic shift could happen. There's news of OpenAI launching a browser which could, change the model completely. There's been talks around Apple potentially changing their default search engine. These kind of things that are happening in and around us could be a seismic shift that means that more users are moving away from Google. But as it stands, and the history that Google has is they're still number one. They still have the technological capacity and competitiveness to also make a seismic shift so that people potentially use their platform more than these other LLMs that are coming into the market. But I think all of this has highlighted that as users, we have almost been let down by the internet and quality of results. And as a result of that, people are changing their user journeys and using different tools to discover products and to discover brands. There's also something to be said around the entire user journey changing. As we've started to adopt AI and users are starting to adopt AI, it might mean that their initial touch point with a brand and the research that they do for a brand is on a ChatGPT-like tool. And then they might then go to traditional search to discover that brand in more detail or to go direct. So the whole user journey and different touch points is convoluting the whole kind of user touch point and life cycle. But at the same time, it presents so many great opportunities for brands to be discovered. And that's what's quite exciting about the whole landscape that's kind of changing in front of us.
Yeah, I agree with that, Luke.
Go for John, sorry.
Oh, I agree with that in total. Like you are absolutely right. And we are making a bet that the switch from search engine to answer engine is happening. And so we're just kind of like seeing our clients are coming to us because they see that. So most of our clients that come to us have an SEO agency or an SEO tools or things. They're still doing kind of the traditional SEO. I know the lines are blurred, and we actually know that to be true. Like everything you said was true. But also, as these tools, even the Googles of the world, start leaning more into zero-click answers and just kind of these answer engines, becoming these answer engines, how your brand sets up for that is different. So like Tasha mentioned, the backlinking, like we think that backlinking is not dead. Like obviously you need to make sure that your brand is out there and visible, but she even mentioned like you don't need technically like even the do follow link. What you need is that people are talking about your brand. It doesn't have to be the New York Times or the BBC anymore. It could be like Reddit, Quora, YouTube comments. Like we see like things like G2 reviews for software, like even Yelp or TripAdvisor for like traditional businesses. Like that matters so much more in the answer engines because social proof, sentiment, all that matters to the LLMs. And so for us, we are thinking about things from a technical SEO perspective. Your page speed needs to be good. Your links need to be good. Like everything like that still matters completely. So that's still very, very valid. But we're betting on, at least what our clients are coming to us to bet on, is how do we position our brand so that in 6-12 months from now, as these things start to evolve, is our brand set up to win in these answer engines? So like I said, that snippet targeting. Are we going to have that punchy one sentence answer when somebody goes to Google and asks for something? Are we going to have all the right kind of answers and kind of social proof in these review sites, these aggregator sites, things like Reddit? Like that's the thing that we're kind of betting on as being like the next step. And so yes, like everything you said, Luke, was totally true. And like the positioning your brand for these answer engines that the things are turning into is so valuable to any brand, really, whether it's, like I said, B2B, B2C, really anybody.
And just to add to that as well, because obviously you mentioned how obviously like YouTube comments and like comments across the board are important. And obviously I think I read, so don't quote me, but I remember reading something which was basically saying that most of the responses that come out of like ChatGPT and all of this is actually driven by Reddit. And what's Reddit? They have, obviously you've got your little subreddits. It's a community of people talking. So if you strip all of this stuff back, it always goes back to who the people are and building a community. And that's why I think in this day and age, it's very important to build that brand affinity. But there's also a lot of research that's showing that people are no longer building any brand affinity because they're scrolling on TikTok. They see a dress that they like and they've clicked on the link and they've bought it. And then their relationship with the brand ends there. And then you'll see, and even from experience with my last couple of clients, you're seeing that, performance non-brand wise is, great, going up this way. Brand performance is going down this way. And obviously, there's several different theories as to why that could be. Could be that even apps are taken away from that brand experience. And I can say that from a point of view when it comes to fashion, because obviously all the places I like to buy clothes, I'm now shopping via the apps. I'm not on the website, if that makes sense. So there's so many different ways to look at it. But I think now, if you want to be creative, you need to be creating those campaigns that drive people to want to know more about the brand, to get them talking about it on these little pockets of places that they'll have their communities. And then obviously the LLMs are using that to determine how relevant that is to what somebody is asking. But then also that when you start building this kind of level of affinity, you also get the consumer coming back to convert as well. So yeah, there's a win-win situation there.
Yeah.
John mentioned, go for it, Luke.
Sorry, yeah. No, I was just going to say, and again, it kind of goes back to that point around kind of good marketing and what these LLMs have also done, and is for SEOs to also lean into different channels, right? We need to be leaning in and talking to, social media managers about how to build communities, how to ensure that, any comments or reviews that are being left on social are kind of contributing to the greater good. And we also need to be leaning into marketing managers to understand, where the brand's going, branding teams, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it really just re-emphasizes that as SEOs, we need to be working sort of across different channels and tapping in and collaborating, because really it comes down to what's the best experience that a user's going to have with a brand. And that touches, that statement touches so many different traditional marketing channels, which are all going after one and the same goal.
Yeah. Tasha, imagine telling one of your clients that like a Reddit thread would be more important than a Vogue feature. Like it's crazy, but that might be the truth of today. We don't know.
I literally had to tell a client something similar like a couple of weeks ago, that literally I noticed that and the thing with Reddit, you have to take control of the conversation. And I think that's what brands miss, as in, if you don't take control of the situation, you'll have your consumer, your audience create a subreddit for you, and then they then manage and own the narrative of that entire Reddit. Whereas if you're smart as a brand, you would create a subreddit. So first of all, people can't steal that name or whatever they decide to call it. But then you can also start to control the narrative, but do it from a place of a genuine place. So not addy or trying to sell anyone anything, but use it as a form of just inserting yourself into real cultural conversations, and even using that as a basis to solve problems or issues that people are genuinely interested in. And then obviously that then heavily influences, the rest. So yeah.
Yeah.
So we're actually going to have a Reddit specialist SEO episode on the 3rd of September. So that's going to be a discussion panel then as well. But
Yeah.
John obviously mentioned it. Tasha, you carried on by talking about the importance of Reddit for ChatGPT as well. Is Reddit the new Wikipedia?
Good question.
Google seems to be betting on it. I mean, it's not public, but Google's spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year to pay Reddit to basically get their data, get their information, get everything. That partnership is open and available now. So you can only imagine like the AI models are doing the same thing. And so I'd say that this is a bet they're making, that Reddit is a forum that matters. And so but I think Wikipedia still matters. I think Quora bizarrely still matters. Like, I can't believe Quora is still relevant in 2025, but it is. Like, places like this are just the ways the brand can get social proof, and they can get people talking about them and chatting about them. The AI models love that, because again, it is almost more real than a backlink in a random blog that who knows if that's real. And I guess, like, I don't know, they've given that more credit. Okay, that could change at any moment, but I think that overall, Reddit seems to be a good forum and opportunity for people to air that information, and the AI models are responding.
I have a controversial addition to what you just said, and the controversial addition is, you see how you said obviously you're surprised that Quora is still going. The way I see it is, Quora is Diet Coke, and Reddit is Coke Zero. If you know what that reference is. So obviously, Coke Zero is something that Coca-Cola obviously marketed towards men, and then and then Quora, and then obviously with Diet Coke, that one was marketed towards females. So obviously they introduced Coke Zero to address the potential like gender nuances between those. But that's the way I see it. I probably know more females using Quora than a Reddit. Like, I hear more men talking about having subreddits about various different things, and I think we're more newer on those like individual platforms. You see what I mean? And then I think to your point with Wikipedia, I think it's because it's not easy to update a Wikipedia page, and the information on there can still be wrong, and it's through a very biased lens. Whereas on the Quoras and your Reddits, they're fluid conversations that people can't necessarily change or edit or manipulate someone's opinion on something. Does that make sense? So yeah, I think that's why it's been viewed that way, and that's why. Oh, go for it. Sure.
Yeah, Tasha, well, you seem to indicate that different types of people may favor Reddit or may favor somewhere else. Does this mean that Reddit isn't right for every type of business, and you need to research where the community is likely to be for your business before you just jump on optimizing for Reddit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you absolutely have to, because obviously where I've had some clients who fall maybe more in the luxury space, like none of those platforms are really relevant. Actually, it's actually YouTube, because especially if it's like what I call an entry level consumer into something luxury, they want very detailed like reviews and conversations. So they're probably going to go to YouTube first before they go to Reddit or a Quora. And their journey is, a bit more of a bigger cycle, and they'll finish their conversion in a store as opposed to online, because they want the in-store experience of, going, having champagne, being shown everything, it's a whole experience. So it's very different. Whereas in other niches, then yes, Reddit might be better to go to that. And then with other niches, Quora might be better to go to that. So if I was looking at, I don't know, skincare, even I've seen Quora pop up for relationship advice, and who is asking the questions? It's with females. Do you see what I mean? So that's where you see those rankings for those kind of queries are high for Quora, but you wouldn't really find it on Reddit. Does that make sense? So
great. Luke, you mentioned the importance of building communities. Sorry for this horrible question. How do you measure the SEO impact of building a community?
It's a good question. It can be difficult, right? So if you are measuring brand sentiment and brand, I know there's different ways that, organizations will look at that measurement. That could be one way. Positive sentiment around your brand is important. Brand searches and traffic coming in from brand searches is also a way that you could measure that. The thing that is really important is making sure that your brand is being mentioned where your audience hang out. And like you said, like, it might not be Reddit for certain industries. It might be YouTube. It might be TikTok. It could be different communities. But you've got to be in the face and be present where your audience are hanging out. That's again part of the reason why it's important to build communities.
John, is brand visibility the way to go about measuring the impact of appearing within AI models?
I believe so. And so for us, people's way of buying is changing. Tasha mentioned earlier, she doesn't buy from websites, she only buys from apps now. Some people still prefer to buy in store. Like whatever it is, we see at least in our research that people are going to the LLM specifically, like a ChatGPT or a Claude or Perplexity, to do research. They want to understand, what am I about to buy? So they are dipping their toes into a luxury good. I have a great example. Like I needed a new backpack for my commute. Like I just needed like a new laptop bag. I went to ChatGPT, gave it very specific instructions, explained exactly what I wanted. I wanted it to be black, weather resistant, no brand, no logo on it. I didn't have a brand preference. I just wanted to find out, what are my options? ChatGPT worked with them for about 10 minutes on the conversation. They gave me 3 options. I then went later on, watched a YouTube video on one of the ones that was the winner, and then bought a product from their website directly. That was my buying journey. That is very, very normal, kind of a buying journey in today's age. So did I go to ChatGPT and buy from ChatGPT? No, I didn't. Now this was happened to be before they added the shopping capabilities, but the way people buy is changing. And so for us, the way we kind of talk to our clients about this is your brand being mentioned? Are you visible when these LLMs are being asked these questions? And that's step one, and probably the most important thing to be in that consideration set. So is being number 1 important? Sure, but being number 2 is also pretty good. Just kind of being in the top 5 means you're probably going to get a look for one of these products. Top 10 even for like some software vendors, if they're going to try to look at, am I going to be in the consideration set for being chosen? So for us, it's about being mentioned and being in the answers from the AI models for these LLMs as they ask these questions is super valuable to be in that consideration set. Now, when people buy, we don't know. It might be a month later, it might be a week later, it might be 2 years later. But your brand is almost like advertising. It's almost like being a billboard in the AI, in the LLMs. And for us, that's what we kind of preach as starting point. As step 1 is make sure that your brand is there and visible when your community is asking the question, like that you should be the answer to, that you should be kind of wanting to rank for.
Yeah.
Shall we talk a little bit about optimizing your brand to actually appear in these AI models? Because John, earlier on you actually talked about snippet targeting. So what can you do to make it more likely that your brand is going to appear within these snippets?
Yeah, this is what's going to be my free advice at the end for like what you can be doing more for your website. But I'll share it now. We see this all the time. Brands with excellent websites with excellent content that really is kind of geared towards their audience. Amazing. That's really good. We don't want you to change your brand perception, your brand image, how your consumers perceive you. But the LLMs are very specific. They want answers. They want to know who you are, why you are that, and like why we should believe that you're the best at that. So snippet targeting is all about things like, I am brand X, we do X very specific thing for this X community, and these are kind of the results they get. That one sentence, I know it might sound robotic or formulaic, and it might not exactly be what you want to be like, I don't know, how you want to perceive your brand, but that one sentence, I promise you, will get you more action in the LLM answers than a 5-sentence answer, which is more fluffy language and kind of more kind of around that. So again, I know that it's kind of a back and forth between tying into your brand image and what you kind of want to be to your consumers, but those shorter, punchier kind of, here's the answer to what your question could be. And by the way, you can do it in the bottom of FAQs if you wanted to, at the bottom of your posts or at the bottom of your pages, however you want to kind of set it up to make it more kind of consumable to your audience is great. But basically those kind of punchy answers to questions that people might be asking is your best chance for these LLMs to pick up you as your answer, because again, they're lazy. They want the exact sentence they could just repeat rather than having to synthesize information and figure out what that answer is.
It's interesting that you said that it could be at the bottom of the page there, John. Obviously, traditional SEO, you'd probably want the key information to be towards the top. Are you saying that position on the page doesn't matter to LLMs?
Ideally, it's at the top, the middle, and the bottom. But for some of our brands, they don't want to do that. And so if we say at least kind of bring it somewhere on the page where it's available and visible in plain text for the scrapers to see.
Yeah. Have you got anything you want to add to that there?
So, was that to me?
Yeah, Tasha, I was just wondering if you have had anything that you wanted to add to that.
I guess the only thing I would probably add to that is just probably more the off-page part of things, because I was just thinking about my recent shopping experience. I'm now showing myself out to be a shopaholic, but my recent shopping experience via ChatGPT, I was looking to buy a new eye cream, and obviously I want to buy, like, I did the same thing as you, John. You put in your specification, I want the best eye cream good value for money. This is what I'm targeting, kind of thing, in terms of what I want the cream to do. And then obviously it's given me a bunch of results. But what I found interesting when I was reading the results and the responses, not only did it pick obviously a couple of options for me to pick, but it was looking at the sources, because sometimes I also ask for the sources. It was looking at all these external publications which have reviewed this product, and then based on the sentiment of the review had then ranked which ones I should go for first versus the others, if that makes sense, which tells me that I think content, obviously doing content campaigns and getting those brand mentions, doing events, doing like bigger things away from traditional stuff actually might be more important than doing the rest. Obviously, we still need to do the basics to make sure that you actually appear in these type of searches. But in terms of how it then gets ranked and how people then perceive it based on what they've read, that sentiment is going to be really important, because I literally picked I didn't pick the top one, but I picked the second one just because of what people had said about the product versus the price. Do you see what I mean? So I think that's going to be very important, because that's going to be now my brand experience with, I ended up buying something from SkinCeuticals. So that's now my brand experience is SkinCeuticals, because I'm now being introduced to their skincare range. Do you see what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah.
Do we need to optimize for the same phrase in as many different places as possible? So I'm thinking about if we're on Reddit or if we're interacting in other communities, do we need to pick the phrase that we use to describe what our brand is and who it's for? That we want to actually train LLMs to actually understand this is how you describe our brand? Or does it not matter so much if you describe your brand in different ways in different platforms?
Well, I think kind of going back to John's point, really being specific and clear, avoiding that fluffy language if you can. I know there's a balance between kind of how brands want to be perceived, but it's really important to be clear. What is it that you do? What are you known for? How do you do it? What is excellence? Demonstrating that and being really clear with that is really important. Again, going back to what Tasha mentioned as well, building your brand and building that off-page real estate in other areas and communities, and having positive sentiment about your brand and products is really important. I'll add one more to the mix, which is around what I like to call creating hubs of relevance. And what I mean by this is ensuring that we've got semantically relevant content that is easily accessible from one page to another. So say for example, I am a product that sells t-shirts. I might want to talk about things like comfort. I might want to talk about material. I might want to talk about weather and conditions. I might want to talk about how to clean it. But having all of those different semantically relevant topics linked to, and having content that is, again, really clear, to the point, is not too fluffy, is also very, very important. And having that kind of linked as a hub of relevance is super important, in my opinion. That really kind of what ties the ability to be able to appear in some of these AI overviews and LLMs. And again, from my research and experimenting with this query fan out technique and learning more about that, I think these hubs of relevance are really what's going to kind of take off and needs to be thought about. It's things that as SEOs we might have been doing already, but gone are the days where you're creating content for content's sake and just trying to generate clicks because you're leveraging your authority. I think that's going to die out. Really, we need to be having relevant content, semantically linked hubs of relevance. That's kind of another one to add to the mix of optimizing for LLMs.
And Tasha mentioned it as well, the citations and the sources. The LLMs are going to give you the feedback. They're going to tell you what they're using to say who's relevant and who's not. So use that. So I mean, this is what part of the process is, understanding how the LLMs are telling us they answer these questions, or how they're kind of telling you essentially what they're doing, because they're giving you their sources, they're giving you their citations. Use that to your advantage. I mean, so this is what our product does really well, but basically that anybody can do that. Just click on, ask the queries you want to rank for, click on what is winning there. What kind of sources and what kind of citations are being mentioned here, and learn from that. Sometimes user testimonials are the most important thing that matters to the LLMs for that answer. Sometimes it's like a product description page having the best information that tells you exactly what you need, because it answers the exact question they asked. Sometimes it's just, like a customer, like a case study that shows like that social proof, like, hey, they're the best because they have this amazing case study. Sometimes it's like a traditional like listicle, like, hey, here are the top 10 vendors and we just put you number one because this listicle, we trust their brand, we trust that blog. And so they say you're number one, you're number one. Like the LLMs will tell you this, and use that to your advantage and understand that better. And then again, create content, make sure you are in that listicle as number one from that blog or whatever it might be to kind of make sure your brand is winning there as well.
Are we moving towards just having a single answer? So just an answer engine instead of a search engine? Or is there still an opportunity actually to be featured as multiple answers within an AI result? Or are AI tools, LLMs, AI models actually wanting to evolve so that they just give you one succinct, definitive answer to the majority of queries?
I personally see this evolving, and I see it being, instead of a single answer, it will be a personalized answer. Eventually, these LLMs, the more we use them, the more they know about us, the more they know about our nuances. At the moment, they're just as a shell, as a browser or app experience. But in the future, who knows how they could look? They might be integrated within us. They might be VR. Who knows? But the way I see things are going and where it's evolving to, it's definitely personalization, and I think we're heading there slightly. Again, circling back to AI mode, it's going to know things about cookies. It's going to know our Google accounts. It's going to know exactly the websites that we visit. It's going to start to become personalized. It's going to start to reference sources that they know that I visit on a regular basis. All of these things are just going to be kind of bespoke personalization engines.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, because even if you use ChatGPT, predominantly the app version of it, I see this more happening. It will give you two options of an answer, and then it's asking you to select the answer that you prefer. So I think it's in a process of testing probably what works better, but I think essentially the outcome that we're probably going to see from that is that depending on how you like your responses, ChatGPT is going to learn that, and then everything, and it will tailor all of its responses to be in that format. So I'm someone who sometimes thinks in bullet points and likes to read bullet points. So I also, even when I write prompts in there, I'm just like in 3 simple bullet points because I don't want the whole jazz, and then give me sources. That's all I need. But whereas other people, they need the fluff that goes with it. So I think eventually what we will move to see is that it will just, like to Luke's point, it will just be personalized, but at the moment they're learning how we want to read and receive it. So I don't know if you guys have seen that before, where ChatGPT is actually giving you the option to pick the answer that you prefer. So yeah,
so ChatGPT, they openly say they're using your memory, so you're opting in to let them use that to personalize to you. I think like Claude basically by default does turn that off. They don't even do that for you, so it's kind of model dependent. I don't want to call it a hot take, maybe like a lukewarm, slightly warm take here, in that I think right now Luke and Tasha are spot on. Like it's kind of just leaning towards personalized answers and it's giving you that answer. But I feel like once these LLMs start turning on the ads, which nobody's really talking about, but once they do, I feel like people are going to get a little more skeptical of that single answer they're getting. Even if it's personalized, even if it's there, it's like, wait, did somebody pay for this answer? Is it more? Right now, people trust the LLM answers truly because it is supposed to be very objective and very meritocratic and very like real. And so I personally believe that. I feel like if they start leaking ads into these answers, even if it says ad, if it doesn't say ad, whatever it is, like people are going to get a little suspicious. And I don't know if it's going to be just simple answers anymore. I mean, I was just listening to Sundar Pichai on a podcast a few weeks ago from Lex Friedman. And from Google, he was talking about this. Like basically Lex asked him, like, so are you guys putting ads in AI overviews? And he basically dodged the question because the answer is yes. Like the answer is yes already. Like they just haven't really talked about it very openly. I think Liz, like their head of search basically like hinted at it. Like they're already starting to do it. And so, but he shut down when he was asked that question. He did not want to talk about it very clearly. But like, I think that is also going to be tying into this. Is like people generally right now in search understand what's paid for and what's organic. And whether you agree with what's organic should be at the top or not, you kind of just understand that that's been earned, not bought, essentially, or maybe through a link farm in the back. I don't know if it's bought or not, but it's been like traditionally earned. Whereas going forward, if these AI models do start introducing ads and kind of like paid content, that could make it me a little bit more skeptical, a little bit more towards, hey, like, can you give me a few answers? Can you give me some options to like read about this more, like make it more clear this is not just the answer right now?
I think what we would probably see is in terms of the ads is that the sources that it's referencing, it would probably, and it lists it out in terms of
how to say sponsor, you have to say something.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be those top bits, but I think depending on how they're all laid out, that's what will be interesting the minute like something like ChatGPT really turns on ads.
Yeah.
Let's finish up by asking our panel one final question and getting them to remind the viewer, the listener, where they can actually find them online. So, John, you said that you might have shared your answer, so hopefully you've got another one ready to go. And the question is, what's the quickest win that an SEO can do to take advantage of their brand appearing in AI models? Tasha, shall we begin with you and ask you to share where the listener can find out more about you afterwards?
Yes. So to answer your question, I think the biggest win in terms of low hanging fruit is optimizing for more longer tail kind of questions and queries, but also focusing on that entity SEO element as a very basic, quick win, low hanging fruit. In terms of where you can find me, actually, and also don't forget about your audience as well. So understand who your audience is and add that to your keyword research. So don't just do keyword research about the products and services, but also do keyword research around what that person would also care about, and then write content on that and optimize for that. But where you can find me is I'm Tasha Antwi across all platforms: LinkedIn, IG, TikTok, Twitter. Yeah, that's
Lovely.
me.
And Luke, what are your thoughts on the initial question?
Yeah, so I'll come back to the initial question because I feel like we need to do a part two. There's so much more that we can be talking about. There's the whole, what Cloudflare are doing to block LLMs that we could have spoken about as well, and the question around, should LLMs be freely able to train themselves on content that has been resourceful for various different brands. So there's many questions like that. There's also a huge disparity between impressions and clicks, and CTRs are dropping, more zero-click searches, which we should also be thinking about as well. But I'll tie that into my kind of one thing that you could be thinking about. There's more zero-click searches. They're not going to go away. We know that you need to also focus on brand, but at the same time, I think it's important for brands to be thinking about experiences. What experiences are you creating, either on site or through your app, or just in general throughout all the various different touch points that a user has with your brand? Think about experiences. What's going to entice the click? It's getting harder to get those click throughs. If AI is summarizing everything and giving you what you need, you really need to have something, or be thinking about an experience that is exclusive, that is only available through you. So that's the one thing that I think people should be thinking about. You can find me, Luke Gosha, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Twitter. That's where you can find me.
Super,
thank you, Luke. And John.
Yeah, so I think a good summary here is I'll just tell a very quick story, I promise. But so, like, the way to win in AI search, in our opinion, is to just own your message, own what you want to be, and just really lean into that. So we own a business called Just Reach Out. It's a digital PR business. It's a great business. It helps you outreach to media, podcasts, get your brand visible and available. Now, we compete against the Muxrats, the Rox Hills, the Cisions, Meltwaters of the world, who spend millions of dollars more than we do on marketing. We're not going to win on traditional search against them. We're not going to win on, very specific AI search. We lean into is we're more affordable. We are DIY. We are more flexible. Like, own your kind of long tail, own your things that you care about, and just hone in on that on your website, on your About Us page, on your blog, everything kind of tie it all together. And so now when you go to ChatGPT or these AI searches and say, like, what are the best media outreach platforms? Like, we show up, not because we're like spent the most money or because we might even not even be the best tool. I don't know. I think we're really good, but because we are that, affordable, more like month-to-month friendly, kind of like those kind of like long tail keywords. And so for us, it's really about owning your niche, especially if you can't spend the millions of dollars you might need to kind of like win in other ways, in traditional search or in kind of these SEO type ways. And so for us, we did this for ourselves. It's why ChatRank exists, is because we built this kind of engine for ourselves for Just Reach Out to make sure we win in the AI models, and then we productize them to ChatRank. And so that's my little plug at the end here. So I'm John. We can reach me at Just Reach Out. That's justreachout.io. As well as ChatRank.ai. Those are both tools that our team owns and operates. Again, one for the more digital PR side of things, media outreach. The other is purely for helping your brand rank better and win in the AI models. Both are the self-serve, sign up for our software SaaS and use it, as well as our managed services and done for you plans for helping you rank better in the AI models.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much, Tasha. Thank you so much, Luke. A wonderful discussion. As Luke said, we could have kept on going. We could have added different elements into it as well. And perhaps we can persuade all three of them to come back in the same channel, the same panel at some point in the future. I've been your host, David Bain, and you've been listening to the Majestic SEO panel. If you want to join us live next time, sign up at majestic.com/webinars. And of course, check out SEOin2025.com too. In the meantime, bye.